I was 8 years old when my family relocated to the house nestled on the fringes of the woods. Initially, my parents harbored reservations about acquiring a residence with a backyard bordering the forest. Worries about wild creatures rummaging through our garbage or posing a threat to our dogs loomed large. Additionally, there was the concern that one of us might wander too deep into the trees and become lost. Despite these concerns, the house was affordable. My dad appreciated the seclusion. My mom adored the structure, and my siblings and I were thrilled at the prospect of playing in the backyard and venturing into the forest. Our first inkling that something was awry surfaced when our dogs exhibited an uncharacteristic fear of the forest. They steadfastly refused to enter the woods for any reason. Even if a toy happened to stray beyond the tree line during play, they adamantly declined to retrieve it. Should one of us venture into the woods, the dogs would anxiously pace until our return. Occasionally, we observed them fixated on a particular spot in the forest, manifesting clear signs of distress, sometimes accompanied by growling or barking. Strangely, we could never discern anything in that direction. On one occasion, my brother attempted to demonstrate to one of our dogs that the forest held no terrors. However, the dog squirmed free, bolting into the house in a state of panic. At twilight in the backyard, we would occasionally hear noises reminiscent of someone traversing the forest, crunching of sticks underfoot, branches yielding to movement. Our calls would receive no response, but when we shone a flashlight in the direction of the sound, we occasionally glimpsed, for the briefest moment, something resembling a person moving in the darkness. Prompted by these incidents, my parents swiftly imposed a ban on venturing into the forest after dark. Even during daylight hours, we were prohibited from straying out of sight of the house. From her bedroom window, which overlooked the backyard and the forest, my sister recalled a night when she spotted a shadowy figure standing at the edge of the backyard. She sensed an eerie abnormality about it, as if it hovered slightly above the ground and stood taller than a typical person. The figure appeared distorted, and she was convinced it stared directly at her. Alerting our dad, she claimed there was a man in the yard peering through her window. When he rushed outside, the figure hadn't retreated. Instead, it vanished the moment the light from our dad's flashlight passed over it. Frequently, we heard knocking at the back door during the night with no one in sight. Initially dismissed as potentially mischievous teenagers, my parents ceased bothering to open the door, until a rainy night when persistent and agitated knocking led my mom to suggest that someone might seek refuge from the downpour. Upon opening the door, however, there was no one present, and the porch displayed no damp footprints. The knocking persisted intermittently throughout our stay, with periods of recurrence followed by months of silence. Subsequently, my parents installed a security camera, revealing no one at the door during these episodes. Nevertheless, the camera proved valuable when, around 3 years into our residence, my brother began experiencing night terrors and engaging in sleepwalking. During these episodes, he unfailingly gravitated toward the back door, heading in the direction of the forest. My mom, a light sleeper, would intervene, rushing out to intercept him before he ventured too far. Curious about his nocturnal wanderings, my brother requested to view the camera footage, expecting it to be amusing. Instead, the footage depicted him stepping onto the porch, pausing as if listening to something, shaking his head, and reluctantly proceeding forward, as if compelled or guided by an unseen force. One evening, my dad, situated in the backyard, heard my sister's distressed voice emanating from the forest. Believing she might have ventured into the woods, fallen, and injured herself, he sprinted in, calling out to her. However, the darkness thwarted his efforts to locate her, and he couldn't pinpoint the source of her voice. Instructing her to stay put while he fetched a flashlight, he returned to find her safe and unconcerned inside. Unaware of my dad's experience, when I heard my mom's voice emanating from the forest months later, while I was outside with the dogs, I didn't question it, despite having seen her inside recently and not noticing her pass me. My mom purportedly needed my help, claiming her sweater was ensnared in branches. As I headed in, the dogs began barking, alerting my dad, who observed me meandering into the forest through the windows. He rushed outside, shouting for me to return, and I obediently sprinted back to the house. Subsequently, my parents had a fence erected around the backyard and initiated a search for a new residence. During the interval between fence construction and our departure, the situation deteriorated. Knocking on the door became more frequent, accompanied by tapping on the windows, as if someone circled the house, testing every window. Scratching and scraping noises on the fence, coupled with indistinct voices beyond it, became regular occurrences. My brother's night terrors escalated, and one night, my mom failed to hear the door open as he sleepwalked, awakening to find him standing at the fence, staring into the forest while the dogs barked at him. On the last morning in our home, less than 4 years after our arrival, we awoke to discover the back door wide open. The security camera footage revealed it swinging open slowly of its own accord. Post-relocation, my brother's sleepwalking ceased, though night terrors persisted, accompanied by severe anxiety. Recently, he called me out of the blue, attempting to inject humor into the conversation, speculating on whether the open door on our final night signified that whatever lurked outside had finally gained entry. Despite his attempts at levity, I sensed he remains profoundly disturbed by the events. I, too, retain a lingering unease around dark wooded areas. While I can't pinpoint what I believe inhabited the forest behind our house at night, I harbor a sense that, given the opportunity, it might have consumed us all.